Sport nowadays is a global business, and with millions and millions or billions of revenue. In this context, obviously, sport is at the center of the net. It has so many stakeholders from everything, single group of industries or fans and so on, and this is very powerful. And sorry for, again, overstretching things, but I sometimes compare the sports industry with the financial industry, which is probably the most regulated industry. And the financial industry is so important because it is invested in every other industry. It has massive impact on every other industry through the proxy or voting rights, proxy voting, and so on, with trying to push this industry into a certain direction. And it has nowadays massive organizations where the behavior of the organization itself has a big impact.
Welcome to Sustainable Futures with Daniela Bas on the first and the third Saturday every month at 10 a.m. Chess time. Join me for in-depth conversations, exclusive interviews, and strategic insights with industry leaders, policymakers, and innovators shaping our future. We'll explore how integrating social fairness enhances business and impacts sectors like fashion, food, tech, tourism, sports, and more towards sustainable social change. Every organization gets stronger by challenging itself, so do we. I know it from my own life experience as a woman with a disability who understands the power of resilience, communication, and of thinking out of the box, and as a female executive leader at global level on social sustainability and inclusion. Be inspired, learn, and gain insights. Tune in, think different, and act with purpose. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in whichever part of the world you are. Well, I want to welcome Christian Hartmann, a visionary in sports and sustainability. Good morning, Christian.
Good morning, Daniela. Hope you're well. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Now, for our audience, let me share a bit about your successful career, okay? So, Christian Hartmann is an accomplished sports and sustainability executive with a sharp eye for detail. And he is the CEO of Global Sustainability Benchmark in Sports, which is a global nonprofit driving sustainability in professional sports through performance ratings and accountability since I think the year 2020. So it has already 4 years. This adventure he started. And as an official nominator for the prestigious Short Prize since 2022, Christian contributes to global environmental solutions, and not only. He deals also with the social and the economic dimension of sustainability, so the whole package. And with the extensive experience in sports management, Christian is a trusted figure in fostering sustainability and innovation within the industry. Did I say it right, Christian?
Yes, thank you for praising me so highly. So I wouldn't have said that, but thank you very much. Yes, we try to do our bit on sustainability in sport and helping and supporting the organizations with what we are doing, but also, as you mentioned, holding them accountable and trying to create more transparency in the industry, and that's what is becoming more and more important. Yes.
So before we dive into more specific questions, I have what I call my jolly question. So, as a German living in England, you have taken quite an adventurous turn in your life, Christian. So, what inspired you to step off the beaten path and dive into sustainability management within the professional sports industry? What I want to know is, was there a specific moment that sparked this passion in you?
That's a very good question, to be honest. And obviously, it was also, as you can imagine, a step out of the comfort zone, because taking this step and doing something that you think about is thinking about it is always easy. But taking a step and making it reality is something different. And um, I was very lucky to conduct my MBA sport in sports management some years back, and I met some really inspiring people. One of them has been Mikael Forser, and nowadays dear friend of mine, a former professional football player, used to play for Chelsea, for example, here in London, Finnish international. And while our MBA program, we very often came to the play or to the stage where we thought, why is nobody actually looking at the sustainability, ESG, or however we want to call it, performance of the sports organizations in depth, not just a little bit highlight and stepping a little bit away from the nice and shiny marketing and communication part of it. And even back then, it was less data available than nowadays. And we discussed this very often and never really had the time. And then COVID was a very difficult period for many people, and but that time everything slowed down, and we just thought, okay, now it's the time, and we started building our reporting framework, which was obviously the biggest step for us because that's been very time consuming, and it's a big document. And with this, we then said, okay, we're gonna take the steps forward, and we pushed very hard. It's been a rocky road, as you can imagine. At the beginnings are always very tough, and but we are very happy about what you just mentioned. 4 years, it feels just like a blink of the eye, but it's 4 years and nearly a little bit more even, and it's been very a really great time because it allowed me to meet people like you and other really high level professionals that have such a special look on the sports industry, and that is the beauty of what we are doing to meeting up with so many nice people who share the same vision, maybe not always into the same direction as you have, a slightly different focus on things, but we share the belief in sport and people, I think.
Right. So now that we understand about the spark, let's dig a teeny bit more into the various paths you have taken, and and understand from your perspective how can the sport industry take the lead on transparency and accountability in today's challenges.
Yeah, I think, as we all know, and we all know these probably overstretched phrase from Nelson Mandela, sport has the power to change the world. But sport is a global phenomenon, and it is something that literally everybody, no matter which age, is looking up to. Everybody has its sport. Obviously, football for us as Europeans, you as Italian and me as German, football is maybe the force in the world. But we have also cricket, where obviously, like in India or Pakistan,
India,
where we have many
Asia.
people looking at what we are doing, and I have some fantastic team member from this part of the world, where we see that sport can be a real catalyst to really force for uh, behavior change, and therefore we believe that if the professional sports organizations actually step up and being really transparent about what they are doing and becoming accountable, while some of them already do, and obviously like in every other industry, it's still a long way to go. I'm not saying that other industries are perfect. So that's the reality, and there is probably no end point to this. So that's the challenge of it, accepting that this is a journey. Well, again, another overstretched term, but becoming transparent and understanding that sharing your data and even your journey will help yourself, but also others is the one thing. But it also will encourage the fans, the spectators, to change maybe their own behavior pattern. And not less powerful, I think, is to understand that sport isn't just the romantic thing we have in our mind from ages ago, or centuries ago. Sport nowadays is a global business, and with millions and millions or billions of revenue. And in this context, obviously, sport is at the center of the net. It has so many stakeholders from everything single group of industries or fans and so on. And this is very powerful. And sorry for again overstretching things, but I sometimes compare the sports industry with the financial industry, which is probably the most regulated industry. And the financial industry is so important because it is invested in every other industry. It has massive impact on every other industry through proxy or voting rights, proxy voting, and so on, with having trying to push these industry into a certain direction. And it has nowadays massive organizations where the behavior of the organization itself has a big impact. And then when we think of the sports industry, it's literally the same. We have organizations with hundreds of employees where they can make a big impact with how they treat their people, which people they employ, what are they doing for the people to develop further in their lives for their own personal lives. And obviously nowadays they have stakeholders and shareholders from around the world with supply chains from many different countries where again they have a big impact. How do they treat these supply chains, the people working in it, and how many regulations they may put into place for these people, for the lives of these people. And with this, it is a very, very powerful industry because every other industry wants to be part of the sports industry. They want to be sponsors, they want to be investors, they want to be maybe just the caterer from across the street of this big stadium, and they want to have this their own little piece of this big industry, which has so much glamour and money, to be honest. And obviously, on top, what I mentioned earlier, and I think we all know, is this industry can do what no other industry can do. It really creates emotions and can help us as spectators and fans to take the next step in our own responsibility. So therefore, becoming transparent and really accountable for what you're doing is a logical step. While it can be scary, don't get me wrong, it can be scary and really exhausting. I know this from the talks with the organizations and the individuals working there. But it's the right thing, and we see that more and more of these people are actually taking this direction and understanding the benefit of it. Not just the challenge, but understanding the benefit, I think, is the biggest and the most important thing, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Three things. You mentioned cricket, and my first and only time I played cricket was when I was improving my English. That was back many years ago, in the UK, actually England, and specifically I spent quite a few months in Swindon, nearby London,
Yeah.
because they told me back in those years, I was 18, if you go to London, you will improve your Italian, not your English. At least this is how it was almost 40 years ago or something like that. So I went to Swindon, and there I played my first and only so far cricket game. It was fun. And then talking about accountability, etc. Indeed, the well-being of people, also in the industry of sports, as you know, is very dear to me. Dealing with the social dimension of sustainability, and internal governance is also a key aspect to be improved. So to assure that the products and services and the whole industry around sports is adopting ethical behavior as well. So I'm very proud and happy about what you're doing. And actually, can you say in a nutshell, and then I would like to ask you another specific question, being the CEO of the Global Sustainability Benchmark in Sports, in a nutshell, what do you do exactly?
What we're doing is in a nutshell, we analyze and rate the actual performance and data of the sports organizations. So we're looking at different types of organizations. So like the associations like FIFA, UEFA. We're looking at the competitions like Formula E, Formula One, or the Premier League, for example, here in the UK, and the clubs, the franchises like the FC Bayern Munich and the AC Milan, maybe from Italy, of the world, and taking really a deep dive into their data from how do they invest their money, How do they treat their people? How many? What's the structure of the employees, for example, how many women, how many men, how do they develop their employees, how much time and money do they invest in them, what's their carbon emission footprint, how is it developing over the years. We're looking at water consumption, waste generation, and so on and so on. We're also looking at obviously the governance side of things, where we're looking at the board structure. How is it made up? Is there a succession planning for the board? Is there a clear structure for doing so? Because nowadays it's also very important for their shareholders to understand who are we dealing with, or taking climate change and environmental risk into account. For example, this is very important for the insurance companies nowadays. So with a growing risk of flood, for example, we just now here in the UK, we've had heavy rains over the last night, and we have puddles everywhere. So we see that flood risk, for example, is a big one. So we try to understand this and breaking it down into a easier to understand rating, which gives the different stakeholders the opportunity to understand where does the organization actually stand, and taking purely data into account. There's no jury or whatever, so we're taking a look at the data at the end.
You know that when I was having and dealing with leading the mandate at the United Nations on globally on sport for development and peace, because it is an enabler of development and peace. I was looking at sports from the policy perspective, while you are looking at it from the, which is also included in a way, the sustainability dimension. So here I have a question. Now, many organizations, and sorry, maybe it doesn't sound like a nice, pretty question, but I have to ask it. Many organizations, Christian, claim to collect data on sustainability in sports. But what makes your approach genuinely different?
I think the biggest unique thing about GSPS is the real depth of data we're looking at, and the breadth. So nowadays, I'm dealing also very often with the stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier, of the industry, some really big multinational corporations. And what I always try to do is to be really transparent about what we're doing. Ideally, we take an hour or two to explain them our reporting framework. And then even these organizations that very often have ESG ratings from certain organizations have conducted several rounds of data collection with organizations. Very often they say, oh, I'm not sure if we would be able to conduct this data collection very easily. So we believe that it's very important to understand the organizations really in depth. So we're looking at numbers, but also, as you mentioned, your part at the United Nations. We are also reviewing the documents. We are looking at the quality of policies, strategies. Nowadays, we see that there is obviously some kind of pressure, if you want to say so, from the society and even from the governances and so on, about having certain things in place. But we see there is a big difference in the quality of, for example, sustainability strategies. We see that organizations know and understand they should have something in place. But obviously, as we both know, it's really very much depending on how much effort you put into something, really thinking it through, having a clear vision and a mission kind of, but also drawing out certain actions out of it, really trying to point out and nail down some goals that you want to achieve. But also very often nowadays and I'm not judging here, but it's very easy to pledge for something nowadays. It's very easy to claim you will be this and that by 2030 or whatever. But what we are also doing here is we're looking at, are you actually doing something to achieve these goals? We're looking at your year-to-year development, and we're looking at, do you set yourself goals for the next 12 months? Because especially, obviously, the most time-pressing issue of our time and our probably in our generations nowadays is, I think, the climate change. And with this, very often nowadays, the organizations have long-term goals. But when you're looking at the data development, it's usually going up. So we want to understand, yes, it's hard and you have to travel and you have certain footprints that are really, really hard to tackle. We are aware of that. But are you actually taking actions? We're looking at the actions that they are doing or conducting to reduce certain things. Or yes, we look at gender pay gap, for example. We're looking at over the years, is it developing into the right direction? Because it's easy to say we are pushing for diversity and equality and so on. But what does the data actually say? So we're looking at the quality of things, but we're also looking at the numbers behind it. We're looking at it developing over the years. And I think with all due respect, I think there are not many organizations, maybe if there is not even another one, that has a deep dive like we do and actually try to understand the organizations in detail as we do. So I think that's what makes us special. But also that's the big challenge. Again, the quality of data we're looking at is not easy to achieve, and that's also the beauty of things. So we one more thing maybe we see that, and I think that's what one of the goals and one of our aims we set ourselves is we want to, on the one hand, set the bar very high. So there is, it's not an easy to tick the box and achieve something very quickly. It's a year-on-year development and on a review. But at the same time, with raising questions, we see that we already helped or we drove some development into these organizations we're working with. Because we ask certain questions about certain topics, they sometimes say, oh, we never thought about this. We never thought about that. That could be a thing. And with this, we see that the organizations that are willing to develop, they take the next steps. While it's maybe not even in place next year or the year after, because some things, as we both know, take just time, and we understand this. But it is for on us to understand the willing and the taking the next steps to develop into the right direction. And I think that's what we try to do, and this is where we see our position in the industry. Some say it's a punishment. We try to be really a partner for the organizations and giving them a really sophisticated feedback for them to understand where they actually stand.
So this is a way for you all to ensure that what to do is real. You can measure the impact and make sure that the report you produce is not just a report to be put on the shelf.
Exactly. Also, what we, for example, started working on, and again, it's everywhere the same. Even for us, it's going to be a long-term or medium-term development. We see that communication around certain topics in the sustainability sphere is becoming big. So we see this. So what we really challenge ourselves with at the moment, or for this year's reporting cycle, is that we try to collect data about how do the organizations communicate certain aspects, certain goals, certain topics. And at one point, we aim to understand and being able to put this data against the actual data that is the organization producing. So communication versus numbers. So that's what we try to do. And we obviously we want to give organizations at one point feedback telling them, look, your communication is really, really aligned with your actual development, or being able to say, look, your communication could maybe even being evaluated as misleading because your data is not developing as quick as your communication. While it's not an easy task, but I think that's again, it will be a feedback that the organizations that take this topic really serious will evaluate or will value and really appreciate. And that's what we really try to do. And with the report on the shelf, as you claim it, we see that this is really being used over the years by quite a very diverse audience. So we have students that are maybe studying sports or sustainability or both together. We have then on the other hand, we have CEOs from multinational organizations that maybe are sponsors in the sports industry that are trying to understand, okay, what is happening? And I think that is where we see our place and where we try to serve our the needs and our purpose.
As I wrap up this episode, my heartfelt gratitude to today's guest and to all of you. Join me for the next episode as we delve deeper with special guests, uncovering thought-provoking insights and actionable steps, paving the way for a brighter, inclusive, sustainable tomorrow. Thanks also to Damian Morton, music, and Maria Cortez Gagliano, social media. Don't miss out next episode on shaping the future we aspire to. Ciao, ciao!